Hello, my spooky crew, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if this is your first time here. My name is Alex, and thanks for coming to my spooky corner of the internet. It's December, it's the holiday season, and we typically think of Christmas as like happy, lights, pretty things, presents, Santa Claus, everything overly positive. But it's not always this way around the world, and it wasn't always this way over the past couple centuries. I've covered Christmas monsters like Krampus and Frau Perchta, and in this video, I'm going to introduce you to a new Christmas monster, or Christmas spirit, Christmas ghost. Either way, it's spooky. I'm going to talk about Hans Trapp, and in my opinion, I think Hans Trapp may give Frau Perchta a run for her money, maybe, or even Krampus. And at the end of the video, you tell me which one you think is scarier. And the creepy thing about Hans Trapp is that he is a cannibal scarecrow that eats children. Scarecrows are pretty freaky of themselves, I'll be honest. That's like the one thing that kind of makes me nervous sometimes is scarecrows, and the fact that there is a Christmas monster that is a cannibalistic scarecrow that eats children. Before we get started, be sure to click on that subscribe button, give this video a like, and be sure to click on that notification bell so you'll be the first to know when I upload a new video, and you can get more ghost stories, spooky Christmas material, ghost hunting tips, paranormal books at thespookystuff.com. And if you want some extra paranormal content from me, you can head on over to my Patreon at patreon.com/thespookystuff. All right, let's get started. The legend of Hans Trapp is very well known in the Alsace-Lorraine region of France. Alsace-Lorraine. Lordy, I am not very good at pronouncing French. It's why I'm so bad at it. Hans Trapp is a lesson to be learned in what happens when you stray away from God, turn to the devil, and what happens when you become obsessed with power and wealth. Hans Trapp was based on a real person, which I'll get into at the end of this video. So Hans Trapp comes from the 15th century, 1400s, and he was a very rich and powerful person. But he was also merciless and feared by people around him. He became so obsessed with power that he ended up selling his soul to the devil and making deals with the devil to make that happen. So then the Pope, the Catholic Church found out about it, and they ended up excommunicating him. And as a result of that, Hans Trapp was shunned from his community. Hans was banished, he was stripped of his titles and his land and his money. He lost basically everything. Things got so bad that he ended up making like a makeshift shack in the mountainous regions of Bavaria, Germany. And while he was in solitude, he dedicated himself to black magic and the occult. His obsession went from money and power to getting revenge. He wanted revenge against the people around him who shunned him and banished him from his home. During his time of isolation, he started to lose his mind. He developed a hankering for human flesh. He started to crave human flesh. So he disguised himself as a scarecrow, he stuffed his clothes with straw, and he took his place next to the road in a field. Then a 10-year-old boy who was from the village, he was the kid of a local farmer, he was walking by Hans Trapp when Hans took one of the sticks that he had and stabbed the kid with it. And as the boy lay dying, Hans dragged his body back to his makeshift cave, makeshift shack in the Bavarian mountains in Germany, and he cut the boy up in little pieces, cooked the flesh, and right when he was about to eat the flesh, he was hit by a divine lightning rod from God. And the variation kind of goes two different ways. It's either he fell to the ground, hit his head, and unalived, or the lightning bolt from God ended up hitting Hans's head and bursting it open, thus unaliving him. I've also read other variations of the story where Hans was already resorting to cannibalism and the 10-year-old boy was God's last straw, like, yo, you gotta stop with the cannibalism. And then I've read other variations where the 10-year-old boy would have been Hans's first ride at cannibalism and God stopped it. Either way, cannibalism. And now the spirit of Hans Trapp lingers around the area, and he lives on as a spirit dressed as a scarecrow. Depending on where you read the story from, there is a variation I find interesting that connects Hans Trapp to Christmas, because this whole time I was like, where's the connection to Christmas? Apparently, Hans Trapp works with St. Nicholas, Santa Claus, as a way to get some redemption back and be able to go to heaven. So while Santa Claus, St. Nicholas, whichever divine Christmas figure is distributing gifts to the good kids, Hans Trapp is enacting punishment against the naughty children. Hans Trapp serves as a warning to children that if they don't change their naughty ways or they continue to misbehave, Hans will take them away and take them into a dark forest and eat them, all dressed as a scarecrow. Because that's not terrifying at all. And if Hans Trapp carries you off into the forest, then you will never be seen again. I mentioned in the beginning of the video that the legend of Hans Trapp is based on a real person. And that real person is named Hans von Trotha, who lived from 1450 to 1503. He was a German knight and marshal in the Palatine territory, which was right around the border of French and Germany. And because of all the work that he did for Germany, he was actually gifted 2 castles on the German side of the border. He ended up getting into a land dispute with the local church, and I believe that church was called Weissenberg Abbey. And the abbot wouldn't concede certain properties to von Trotha, even though he was the rightful owner, I guess. In retaliation, von Trotha had the nearby river dammed, so basically cutting off the water supply from the local village, which that's pretty terrible. And then when the abbot complained, von Trotha had the dam torn down, and this ended up flooding the village and devastating them economically. At this point, we pretty much have open warfare between Hans von Trotha and the abbey, or the abbot. And even the emperor at the time couldn't stop it. He tried to intervene, but he couldn't stop it. And since the emperor couldn't do anything, they had to get Pope Innocent VIII involved. And then Pope Innocent VIII's successor, Alexander VI, he took over as pope, and he had asked von Trotha to come to Rome and basically explain his side of the story because the abbot was filing complaints with the church. So basically it was like, hey, you need to come state your case. And this was pretty much to prove his loyalty to the church too. And this was taking place in 1491. Instead of complying and going to Rome, von Trotha refused, and not only did he refuse, but he wrote a letter basically stating like how religious and how holy he is, while talking smack about Pope Alexander VI and how he is, you know, doing all of these impure things, basically accusing the Pope of impure acts, and it was a hot mess. I'm not sure what Hans von Trotha was thinking when he did this, but of course the letter didn't work, and in 1491 he found himself excommunicated from the church. Unlike our friend Hans Trapp, Hans von Trotha actually wasn't affected too badly by it. He actually ended up going to France and serving in the French court, and King Louis XII even gave Hans von Trotha the title of Chevalier d'Or. And then after Hans von Trotha died, all of the charges and allegations against him were lifted and forgiven. I have to say, Hans von Trotha must not have been liked at all, especially since this Hans Trapp legend kind of came from him. It was inspired by him, and even to this day Hans von Trotha is seen as like the Black Knight, and in legends with Hans Trapp he's the anti-Santa Claus. I've talked about, you know, Santa's usually the good cop in these holiday celebrations, and then there's a bad cop like Krampus or Hans Trapp or Belsnickel, and there's so many to choose from. I guess it goes to show that, you know, if you were a jerk in life, you know, somebody could make up a really crazy Christmas legend out of you and it ends up living on in infamy, and then it becomes more famous than your actual biography. So who do you think is scarier? Do you think a cannibalistic Christmas scarecrow is scarier than Krampus? Or is Krampus the scarier one, or Frau Perchta? Like, who's the scariest Christmas monster to you? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, then be sure to share this with your friends and family who also enjoy the spooky stuff. Thank you all so much for watching, happy holidays, and I'll see you in the next round.